Connectivity trouble. Not sure why. If you see me, I apologize. Well, looks like I am on with having some trouble, but my software says I'm not on, so it looks like what do you do? I'm going to proceed. If it's too painful to follow, don't know what's going on with that. But I'm Pastor Paul Thompson, Lakeview Baptist Church. It's Wednesday night, January 12th, and I appreciate you. This is it looks like there's 4 people joining us. Sorry. Wednesday night down in Texas. I do that each year for a week with a good pastor friend of mine. And so I will not be having my online Bible study, which we but I won't be here next Wednesday night, and we won't have adult Bible study at church next Wednesday night. So just want to let you know about that. I'll be gone this Sunday and to visit there in Hamilton. So we will be gone, but Jordan Loffer will be preaching Sunday morning for me. So really it's having problems on there, but we're going to jump right into it. Last week, we talked about the 4th commandment, the commandment to remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And we've gotten to number 4 here. And so we talked about that. A lot of unique things. It's the longest commandment. It is. It's the only commandment that has a different message, and there's just a couple other differences about it. And as I suggested, it is probably, in some ways, the most controversial commandment. There is question applies to us today still as Christians, and then also assuming, and as I take the line that it does still apply to it seems to be the most neglected or disobeyed commandment. As I share often, you've heard me say before that most of us agree that we bad. We know we shouldn't be carving idols and bowing down and worshiping other gods, and we should honor our fathers and mothers. But when it comes to keeping the Sabbath, it's like, yeah, maybe we ought to do that, but I'm gonna, we are habitual Sabbath breakers in general, I think. Well, how do you keep it? I'm a Christian. Isn't Sabbath Saturday, and we don't worship on Saturday typically? And so all these questions around that. But as we shared last week, I believe it's still for today, as Jesus showed us, the New Testament shows us, but none of them are to be legalistic. I think Sabbath should be embraced as a gift, the gift that it was considered, and it is important. But also, that kind of becomes the study for tonight. And so let's look at the commands in Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11, and Deuteronomy. It's easier if you can look at both of those passages of scriptures kind of parallel, but I'll do my best. If you have your Bible and you want to open it to both places, then that would be great. But I'm going to read differences. Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. In it you shall not do any work with you. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day. Then the differences between Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. The first difference is in the actual command. Exodus 20 begins with remember, to remember the Sabbath day. We talked about that. Again, those complement one another. The great nuance and balance of our approach towards this. The bottom line of the command is that we're to keep it holy. We're to the application of that command is pretty much the same. 6 days. On 6 days we do labor and do our work. But on the Sabbath, on the seventh day, it is a Sabbath of the Lord your God. We're not to do any work. And then he describes, your son or your daughter, your male or female servant, things like that. And even if you happen to have someone sojourning, they may say the alien, but a sojourner, someone coming in from, in this case, among you, no one is to work on this seventh day. Okay. Deuteronomy 5 pretty much says the same thing. Your daughter, your male servants, female servants, or the sojourner. And then it says, so that your male servant and your female servant, and by that they may rest as well as you. And so it isn't just something that's a privilege for the head of the house, everybody. It is for everybody in the household. It's not just something the privilege, the person in charge and the power. It is for everyone that stays there, even those who have no rest, just like you do. And then, as I highlighted last week and mentioned tonight, a different grounding or anchoring, a reason for this. He says, you shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and the Lord your God brought you out of there by a mighty hand and by an outstretched arm. And so, really tonight, I just want to ask two questions. Practice Sabbath, why Sabbath, and how Sabbath. How should we practice the Sabbath? Now the why I want to kind of give to you and suggest some key patterns or guidelines or ideas, but that's really up to you to determine. So let's start with the question: why practice the Sabbath? Those two reasons given, the different reasons given, one in Deuteronomy and one in Exodus. Why do we practice Sabbath? Well, there's a reason because of creation, and there's a reason because of and so the first question is, why do I practice Sabbath? Because of creation, because that's the practice of Sabbath answers this question or forces us to answer this question or a reminder that there's a difference between the Creator and the creation. We are the ones created. And Sabbath reminds us of that. And let's be honest, even though we are, in a sense, co-creators in many ways, and God's invited us to participate in different the Sabbath gives us a reminder that we are not the Creator. He is God, we are not. And we need to remember that. And sometimes it's easy to forget that God's got this. He is in charge. He is the sovereign creator. And tying this back into the creation story, it was good. Work is good, and this creative work is good. Even he rested, entered into the throne room, sat back on his throne, and rested and observed, refreshed himself on that, just taking a breath, just to enjoy what he has done, the fruit, so to speak, of his creation. And so God set that not because God needs to nap or he's not like us to get tired or anything like that, but just as the sovereign to rest and reign over his creation and to set us an example of some kind. I'm not saying, if you have a 5-day work week, it ought to be 6. I'm not saying that because you work at home, we do other work, but for 6 days we work, and that's good. We ought to. Sabbath means Shabbat. We stop, and whatever we do that day in ceasing from work, we should be remembering he is the one who keeps the world going. He is the one who sustains and takes care of and provides, not us. It is not us. It is not our own hands that has brought this about. That we need to be reminded. And so it's humility and understanding that we bow before God and we acknowledge that so we can stop for 1 day a week from working and producing and enjoy the fruit of our labor the other 6 days. And so whatever back into the creation narrative and pattern of creation, 6 days of working hard, 1 day of not working at all, so that we can rest and remember he is redemption. And it says to remember that you used to be slaves, now you're free. And so don't work. You're a free person. You work 6 days a week to produce as a free person. And on the 7th day, rest and enjoy it. Rest and be refreshed and enjoy. This is a key reminder that we have to ask the question, am I a slave or am I free? As Christians, we recognize that we were in slavery. I mean, there's so much symbolism in the Calvary, in the empty tomb, that he set us free. We were enslaved in bondage to sin, and we have been set free. We have been, that's what redeemed means. It means to be set. This takes and it reminds us that, hey, remember who you were. You were in bondage to sin. All that, it kind of like what's the old Jesus talks to Peter about. It kind of dirties our feet, and we need to have our feet washed. Who we were, who we are, and something that reorients us to that, that helps cleanse us and refresh us spiritually, emotionally, physically, all those ways. And so, 6 days we do all this other stuff, but we're not slaves. We're free people. We have been set free in Jesus Christ. And so that's why God gave us and so to remind us of these two things. So however we practice Sabbath, it ought to keep those two things created. We are not slaves anymore. We have been set free in and through Jesus Christ. So then, how do we practice Sabbath? Practice, and that's where I want to look at a couple of key words in a couple of other verses. One is Exodus 31, verse 17, and I may have read this last week, but I'll read it to you now. Exodus 31, 17. Days the Lord made heaven and earth, but on the seventh day he ceased. He Shabbated and was refreshed. Now, compare that to Exodus 23, verse 12, also talking about the Sabbath. He says, for 6 days you are to do your work. Shabbat. So that your ox and your donkey may rest, and the son of your female slave, as well as the stranger, refresh themselves. And so we have 3 key words here that help us to know what we, to help us to create a pattern, perhaps, that you could follow, that you could commit to. And so here are the 3 key words. The first one is cease or stop. And so whatever we do, ceasing, resting, refreshing. Whatever your plan is on that one day a week, by the end of the day, you should resting and refreshing, that I stopped producing and got out of the grind in the rat race, that if your Sabbath day is not slowing down and stopping, if you're not feeling rested, you need to reevaluate your practice of the Sabbath. Now, I think I talked about it last week, but I want to remind you that I don't, again, because I believe that as Christians we are free, and that I think this principle of Sabbath is very important, but I don't think we have to tie it to the Sabbath. Baptists and the Seventh Day, probably everything, who take the, I think in a legalistic way, saying no, yes, Sabbath, agree with them, but it must be on Saturday. We call it the Lord's Day. Some people call it the Christian Sabbath, and though that technically isn't right, I mean, I'm okay with it practically. That we can take to stop working, to remember creation. He's a creator, and we're the created, and to remember him. But through Jesus, we've been set free and redeemed through the cross in the empty tomb. Sunday fits for that as our day. It is the day that we can do that. And so Sunday, I have to work on Sunday, I understand, but so pick another day. And it may need to be a combination. It may be you have to work part of Sunday, but you can, because most churches don't have worship on other days, though now at least online church replace in-person church. It just cannot. In a pinch and out out of a desperation, it can temporarily, but it's terrible. But if you just can't make it on a Sunday, then then you need to practice another day. Maybe you can incorporate the online part of that, but I would, with your job, to get some of those days off, because you just need to be with God's people. Or maybe you make it up on a Wednesday night. Another beside the point. Point is, whatever day, maybe you're. And then speaking as a pastor, I struggle with this because Sunday is kind of my Sabbath, except that it's one of my hardest work days. I'm a pastor. I work one day a week. Sunday, no. That at our church and practicing this, we have eliminated, for the most part, everything after Sunday morning. So we don't have committee meetings. We don't have a church people. Y'all can be refreshed instead of inviting you back. Because when I grew up as a Baptist, here was my typical Sunday school, worship. So there's about 3 hours on Sunday morning. Like at 4 o'clock, discipleship class at 5 o'clock, and worship at 6, or somewhere around there. And then if there are any committee meetings, it'd be after that or before that, or activities and stuff. So by the time we're done, 3 or 4 years ago, after studying this, preaching on this, we decided to kind of on a trial basis to quit doing things on Sunday evening so that our people could be refreshed and it wouldn't be work and wearing people out. Well, that quarter. Other than that, we try to not have no committee meetings, things like that, because we don't. So for even as a pastor, I still consider Sunday, even though Sunday morning I get up. On Sunday mornings I start at 5:30 and I'm going till about 12:30, and so I get 6 or 7 hours in there of all focus. Able then after 12:30 to the rest of the day, I don't have to think about work. I don't think about church. I don't have to, I just, I'm able to rest and so my Sabbath. And so I don't know how to get off on that. Sorry. I'm trying to wrap this up. The key words: ceasing. Is in those verses that we just read, that it means to cease or stop working, stop from work. It needs to make sure that on this day, let's just assume it's Sunday for most of it, or it can be Sunday for most of us. On this day, this whole day, and I know a lot of people say, well, just start with an hour. Pick a day, go cold turkey. Try that. But if you have to work into half a day or whatever, that's fine. But just whatever this day is, make sure. If you call it work, like homework or housework or anything like that, if it's called work, don't do it. Another side note: we're not talking about a new. If someone's, this is about people. If someone's hurt or sick, you take care of them. You there's things, those things aren't considered work. Needs arise, but in general, except for when special things happen and things that can be changed and that have to, you have to minister and take care of people. Things out of love. Love always trumps everything. You know, if you normally consider it work, like cleaning the house or mowing the yard or cramming for your exam, doing it on Sunday or on whatever day your Sabbath is, if it's considered work, don't do it. Stop it. That's Shabbat. Cease. Stop. Is it stopping work? That's the question. If you're not stopping work, you're not observing the Sabbath. Is it restful to you? These are different for each of us. I mean, this may be a bad example, but because it could be, but there are some things that I would consider work that and there's probably at some points where gardening is work to him, but there's also aspects of it where it's refreshing to him. So, for example, I might go for a run on Sunday. Many of you would. This would be more just kind of just a time to just enjoy, not worry about my keeping tabs on it, not worry about training for an upcoming race or something like that, or even being overwhelmed about. And so for me, going out for an easy run would be refreshing. So that would be okay. And for you, that would be anything but. So that would not allows you to rest physically, spiritually, emotionally. What is work that does the opposite of those? It's good, but so this could be, depending on your family situation, your situation in life, but this could be game day, game night for the kids, you and your family, you and your spouse. You would play a game. It could be a time to go for a walk with your spouse or your kids. Go for a bike ride. Just something that gets your mind off work, that gets your mind off the why Sunday's such a good day for this, because I think we need to be in worship. It is a day to worship. It is a day to sing the songs that remind us with brothers and sisters that where we are renewed and refreshed, um, and so worship is the perfect thing, and being in Bible study. Um, if it becomes laborious, and if you've already had Bible study Sunday morning, and suddenly now you don't really get to relax in between, that's why we kind of took Sunday nights off. Uh, for Bible study, for an extra Bible study. So if your church meets on Sunday morning, and you'll go to that, go to Bible study, serve point of the day, and then lead you into the rest of the day where you can then just be at home and relax. And it's not time to cram for the test the next day. It's not time to catch up on the housework or chores. To refresh. And so now, wrap this up just a second. You may be saying there's too much to do. There's no way I can do that. Well, let's go back for a second. Do you think this was? I mean, and then if you're thinking this too, then just you remove this thought. But here's the thought: I only know what my life's like. It is so difficult today. It's not like it was. What, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, when Moses and the children of Israel in the desert and all that. Much easier. They didn't have all the things we have today and all the things that have to be done. And I'm thinking, okay, don't go there. You really don't want to trade places and say that was easier than today. It was not. Okay, easier for them. It was, in other words, it was not at all easy for them to practice Sabbath, which is why it was so difficult for them as well. And one reason why there's, it's exiled outside the camp, even killed. I mean, We don't offer, I don't recommend that, for today, obviously, but it's that too caught up in trying to get things done and taking on the creator type role. And he said, no, 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 one day a week. It was not easy for them to keep that one day. It was an act of faith. It was a sacrifice, but they did it as an act, and it is an act of faith and trust. And so, but what did they do, especially in the wilderness wanderings? This is a good reminder to us. Remember, seventh day, you don't have to gather or work for that, and you don't have to prepare, but you can do, in other words, prepare and do all that. God helped them to say, get ready, knowing that on the seventh day, I'm not working. So therefore, I'm going to get all my work done, maybe even a little extra on the next to last day. So just for example, you've got a test due, you've got a test on Monday, then take some time Saturday. So, well, that's my time to play. No, no, you're describing Sabbath now. No, and guests coming over on Sunday, get all that done on Saturday or Friday or whatever day you can. In other words, this is sacrifice, and it is going to take some adjustment and some pre-planning. A week, let's just use Sunday as that day, that on Sunday, I am not going to do housework. I'm not going to do yard work. I'm not going to labor or produce anything. I'm not going to study to me. Then if we make that commitment, then we're going to have to make adjustments during the rest of the week so that we don't. Used to that was sacred day for even for the secular world, not anymore. And I recognize that, but you've got to ask yourself those questions. Kids need to have a Sabbath as well. Oh my goodness, our kids, even so desperately in this world now, need a day that they're not having to do sports. They need that. Sports, just like we hurt people that expect to work 7 days a week. This is a gift from God. This is a refreshing to God. It's difficult to practice, especially at first, but once we do it, so worship, study with God's people, enjoy time with family, do things, read things, refreshing. Yeah, not a new legalism. There's not a condemnation if you don't, if you do too much work or do whatever. I'm not looking for all these. You can't even press the buttons on the elevator on Shabbat. They're all lit up and it stops at every floor because apparently it's work and they've got to. But what is your Sabbath plan? You need to make a plan. If you're going to quit disobeying this command and you're going to incorporate this gift of God, we have to adjust as we go, and with grace, not legalism, with the spirit of the law, because God wants this, and help explain this, work together, see what the ideas are. But mom and dad goal is a value, and then helping the kids to come to appreciate that as well. So I would include church in it, and worship and study, include maybe family. It's a good time for family worship. And stop from work so that we can remember God's creative physically, emotionally refreshed and ready to serve Him. So, guys, this is a gift. It's really not a have to; it's a get to. How you can incorporate this into your life. So, thanks for joining me tonight. I don't know this. I don't know if how much this showed up and if it was even watchable, but I hope you caught some of that. So, let me pray. Forgive us for our neglect of it, Lord. May we capture the spirit of it and give us the courage, Lord, and then to live it from grace, not legalistically, but as the gift that it is, that we might truly be refreshed and renewed in you. Thank you, Lord.